The Great Gatsby is a story that refuses to die. We all know the legend, the green light, the parties that lasted until dawn, the man who built a castle to buy back the past. But while the fiction lives forever, the reality was made of stone, and stone can be broken. The true story behind the Gatsby Mansion is not a romance. It is a tragedy of ambition, technology, and erasure. It is the story of Harbor Hill, a palace of limestone and gold that once dominated the highest point of Long Island. It was built to last for centuries. It barely lasted 50 years. So, here is the question. If the very house that inspired the American dream could be crushed into gravel and wiped from the map, what does that say about the dream itself? This is the investigation of Harbor Hill. Chapter 1. Building a Dream in Stone. To understand the house, we must understand the moment. It is May 1899. We are standing on the north shore of Long Island, about 20 miles east of New York City. Today, we know this coastline as the Gold Coast, a legendary strip of wealth and manicured gardens. But in 1899, it is still a quiet landscape of potato farms, fishing villages, and salt marshes. But the silence is ending. The Gilded Age has produced a new class of American royalty, and they are looking for territory. They arrive in private rail cars, staring out at the waterline, signing deeds that transfer hundreds of acres in a single afternoon. They are not looking for summer cottages. They are looking to write their names on the land. Enter Clarence Mackay. He is 25 years old, intensely serious, and obscenely wealthy. He is the heir to the Comstock Lode silver fortune and the Commercial Cable Company, an empire of undersea telegraph lines that binds the continents together. He represents the new, raw power of the industrial West. Beside him stands his wife, Catherine Dewar. She is 22, a descendant of colonial aristocracy, with old New York blood running through her veins. Their marriage is the perfect Gilded Age merger. His infinite capital joined to her impeccable pedigree. They choose the highest ground in Roslyn, a natural amphitheater of 216 acres, looking north toward Connecticut and west toward the smoke of Manhattan. It is a site that demands dominance. For the design, they hire the only man capable of translating their ambition into stone, Stanford White. White is the most famous architect in America. He is the star of McKim, Mead, and White, the mind behind the Washington Square Arch and Madison Square Garden. He does not build houses. He builds stage sets for power. Clarence Mackay's instructions are precise. He wants a great hall for 200 guests, a dining room for 40, a library for serious collecting, guest wings, terraces, and gardens that step down to the water. He gives White a budget of roughly $2 million. That is nearly $70 million in today's money. He wants it done in 3 years. He wants a monument. White looks at the young couple and the raw hill. He sketches a vision that is not a fortress, but a French chateau adapted for American confidence. He calls it Harbor Hill. It sounds pastoral, almost modest. It will be anything but. Chapter 2. The workshop under the sky. Building a dream requires violence. Before the elegance, there is the excavation. In the summer of 1899, the quiet of Roslyn is shattered. The first crews arrive not with silver trowels, but with dynamite and steam shovels. The site is covered in century-old oaks and maples. Stanford White, with his obsession for framing, orders a surgical clearing. He removes 40 acres of forest but leaves specific ancient trees to frame the future views. He treats the landscape like a painting, editing nature until it complies with his vision. Then, the digging begins. The foundation trenches go down 12 feet, biting into the bedrock. The footprint of the house is staggering. The main facade spans 160 feet. From the water, the construction site looks less like a house and more like a cathedral rising from the earth. By September, the materials begin to arrive, converging on Long Island from every corner of the globe. This is a logistical triumph. Indiana limestone arrives by rail, 60 tons at a time, each block numbered to match White's blueprints. Masons set up cutting sheds right on the lawn. The air is thick with limestone dust and the clang of chisels. The labor force peaks at 200 men. We still have their names in the payroll ledgers, preserved in historical archives. Domenico Russo, a master mason from Carrara, Italy. James Whitfield, a lead carpenter from Edinburgh. And Liam Brennan, a 23-year-old laborer who drowned in 1900 when a barge carrying copper flashing overturned in the harbor. The house demanded a toll before it was even finished. The coordination is industrial. Lumber comes from Oregon. Old-growth fir for the framing. Grains so straight it looks drawn with a ruler. The roof requires copper rolled in Philadelphia, shipped in coils weighing 600 pounds each. The glass comes from Belgium, packed in sawdust, insured. For a fortune, Stanford White is relentless. He issues revised drawings weekly. He demands that the electrical conduits, a new luxury, be buried invisibly within the limestone walls. By the autumn of 1902, the shell is complete. The copper roof is soldered tight. The windows are sealed against the Atlantic wind. Clarence Mackay visits weekly, inspecting his investment. Catherine visits less often. She is pregnant with their first child. The house is waiting. It is a shell of stone, steel, and glass, holding its breath for the life that is about to fill it. Chapter 3. Nights of 1,000 Lights. The house comes alive on June 14, 1903. It is not a riotous party, but a carefully curated dinner for 32. It is a rehearsal. The Mackays are testing the machine. By 1905, the rehearsal is over. The performance begins. Harbor Hill becomes the social anchor of the Gold Coast. The rhythm of the house is set. Winters in the city, summers in Europe. But spring and autumn belong to Harbor Hill. This is the era that Fitzgerald would later mythologize. The driveway, graveled and raked, sees a parade of carriages and early automobiles. The Great Hall, with its tapestries and 20-foot ceilings, becomes a theater of wealth. In April 1906, the legendary tenor Enrico Caruso is hired to sing in the music room. He performs a private recital for 60 guests who have arrived on a special chartered train. Stanford White designed the acoustics of this room with engineers from Carnegie Hall. When Caruso sings, his voice carries through the open French doors, out onto the terrace, and dissolves into the night air. The guests are afraid to breathe. Clarence pays Caruso $5,000 for the evening, a casual fortune, but the true spectacle creates the legend. The balls of 1910 and 1912 see guest lists swelling to 300. The music room doors are thrown open. Orchestras, not quartets, but full orchestras play until 3 in the morning. We have records of the flowers, American beauty roses, orchids, and lilies, arranged in columns 8 feet high, turning the stone hallways into indoor gardens. We have records of the champagne, rivers of it, flowing alongside 7-course suppers served past midnight. From the water, fishermen in the Long Island Sound would look up at the hill. They would see the mansion blazing with electric light, every window glowing against the dark forest. It looked like a landed ocean liner, a vessel of impossible luxury sailing through the night. It was the night of 1,000 lights. It was the peak of the Gilded Age, crystallized in a single house. It felt permanent. It felt like the party would never have to end. Chapter 4. A palace that learned loneliness. But a house, no matter how thick its walls, cannot keep out the coldness of a dying marriage. Beneath the glitter of the parties, the silence between Clarence and Catherine was growing. Photographs from these years tell a different story than the society columns. Catherine smiles, but the expression is tight, practiced. Clarence is growing heavier, his face reamed by port and stress. In public, They are the king and queen of the Gold Coast. In private, they are ghosts, occupying separate wings of a castle. The house was built for unity, a family seat for a dynasty. Instead, it became a landscape of separation. By 1914, the whispers in New York society turned into headlines. Town topics, the scandalous gossip sheet, ran blind items about a cable magnate's wife who preferred Paris to Long Island. Catherine begins spending months in Europe. She leaves the children Ellen, John, and little Catherine in the care of governesses and staff. The children grow up in a palace that is structurally magnificent but emotionally hollow. Their daughter Ellen would later write of the rooms between, the neutral territories where the children played, avoiding the wings that belonged to one parent or the other. In 1915, the separation becomes official. It is handled with the discretion of the upper class. There is no divorce yet that would be too scandalous. Instead, there is an arrangement. Catherine keeps her apartments at Harbor Hill, but she lives a separate life. Clarence remains. He fills the silence with noise. The parties continue, but the tone shifts. The guest lists change. He invites more business associates, men from the cable company, politicians. The delicate, artistic touch of Catherine is replaced by the heavy smoke of cigars and the weight of corporate strategy. Walk through Harbor Hill after the guests have left in 1916. The servants have cleared the champagne glasses. The orchestra has packed up. You are left with a man sitting alone in a study the size of a townhouse, surrounded by silent servants. The house has learned loneliness. It was designed to amplify joy, but now, its vast scale only amplifies the solitude. Chapter 5. The Invisible Hands. To maintain this illusion of effortless magic, Harbor Hill consumed human labor on an industrial scale. The house was not just a home, it was a major employer. At its peak, the estate requires 38 full-time staff members. In the winter, the crew trims to 22. These are the invisible hands that make the stone breathe. At the top of the hierarchy stands Charles Brennan, the head butler. He arrives in 1904 and stays for 23 years. He is the general of the household. He manages the silver vault, the wine cellar, and the front of house. He earns $1,200 a year, a solid middle-class income, plus room and board. Below him is a regiment, 2 footmen, whose job is to be furniture that breathes, opening doors, pulling chairs, anticipating needs before they are spoken. 5 housemaids, who start their day at 6:00 a.m., scrubbing grates, carrying linens, and dusting acres of mahogany. They live on the 3rd floor, 4 to a room, sharing a single wardrobe. The kitchen is its own fiefdom. Chef Augusta Villard, recruited from Delmonico's, commands a brigade of 5. A dinner for 30 guests requires 4 days of preparation. Villard has a temper, a French vocabulary of insults, and a salary of $2,000. That is second only to the estate manager. Outside, the grounds require a small army, 12 gardeners in the summer. They mow 14 acres of lawn with push mowers. Clarence Mackay dislikes the noise of motors, so the grass is cut by hand, a task that takes 2 men the entire week, only to start over again on Monday. And connecting them all is the call system. Hidden in the walls are miles of wire connecting 112 pull cords to a numbered board in the servants' hall. When a bell rings, a number flips, a servant moves. To the family, the house works by magic. To the staff, the house is a machine of bells, schedules, and relentless physical labor. In 1915, the payroll alone is $42,000. Add in food, coal, uniforms, and repairs, and the annual operating cost of Harbor Hill is $55,000. In today's terms, that is nearly $6 million a year, just to keep the lights on and the beds made. Chapter 6. The Language of Power. Why spend this money? What was the point? To answer that, we must look at the architecture of Stanford White. He didn't just design a shelter. He designed an argument. Stand at the entrance gate, 500 feet from the front door. The driveway curves through the trees, revealing the house in fragments. A chimney here, a roofline there. It is a cinematic reveal. When you finally enter the forecourt, the house hits you all at once. The limestone facade is a study in symmetry. It is classical, rational, and imposing. White used the golden section, a mathematical ratio of proportion used by the Greeks and the Renaissance masters. The windows, the columns, the height of the ceilings, everything follows a hidden mathematical logic that the eye finds instantly pleasing. You don't look at Harbor Hill and think, that's a nice house. You look at it and feel a sense of order. But the real masterpiece is the terrace. The house sits on a manufactured plateau. On the west side, White designed a series of stone terraces that step down toward the harbor. They are defined by heavy balustrades and staircases wide enough for 6 people to walk abreast. This is architecture as power. By reshaping the earth, by placing the house on a pedestal, White was telling the world that the Mackays were not just rich, they were permanent. They were American aristocrats. From the center of the Great Hall, you can look through the house, out the French doors, across the terrace, and see the Long Island Sound. The axis aligns the house with the horizon. It suggests that the estate doesn't end at the fence line. It extends as far as the eye can see. This was the illusion Stanford White sold, that if you build well enough, you can conquer the world. Chapter 7. Wires, wireless, and war. But the foundation of this world was not limestone. It was copper wire. Clarence Mackay's empire relied on the commercial cable company. For decades, if you wanted to send a message from New York to London, you paid Mackay. His cables ran beneath the Atlantic, pulsing with stock prices and diplomatic secrets. However, just as Harbor Hill was rising, a new technology was being born. In 1901, Guglielmo Marconi proved that a radio signal could cross the ocean without a cable. Wireless telegraphy. At first, it was just a scratchy experiment. Mackay dismissed it. He continued to lay cables, investing millions in copper. But technology moves faster than stone. By 1912, wireless was commercial. When the Titanic sank, it was wireless that saved the survivors. The world noticed. Mackay fights back. He merges with the Postal Telegraph Company. He expands. He works himself to exhaustion. But the First World War changes the game. In 1917, the U.S. government nationalizes the cable lines for security. Mackay's revenue drops by 30% in a single year. The war also breaches the gates of Harbor Hill. The era of private exclusion ends. Catherine organizes the North Shore Women's War Relief Committee. The Great Hall, once the scene of balls, is filled with long tables where 70 women roll bandages for the Red Cross. In 1918, the estate hosts officers from Camp Upton. Army uniforms replace tuxedos on the terrace. The Mackays are doing their patriotic duty. But the spell is broken. The house is no longer a private sanctuary. It is a semi-public facility. By the time the war ends, Clarence's personal income has been cut in half. The taxes are rising. The cables are aging. The wireless signals are getting stronger. The house looks the same, but the financial bedrock beneath it is turning to sand. Chapter 8. It is 1922. The war is over. The Jazz Age is beginning. And 20 miles west, in a rented house in Great Neck, a young writer is watching. Scott Fitzgerald is 26 years old. He is not rich enough to live on the Gold Coast, but he is famous enough to be invited to the parties. He stands on the edge of the ballrooms, a drink in his hand, observing. He sees the desperation beneath the jewels. He sees the new money, trying to buy the legitimacy of the old money. In 1924, he begins writing a novel. He invents a character named Great Gatsby, a man who builds a colossal mansion on the water to impress a woman across the bay. He describes Gatsby's house as a colossal affair. a reproduction of a French Hotel de Ville. Is Harbor Hill the Gatsby mansion? Geographically, the location fits, the scale fits, the tragic ambition fits perfectly. While Gatsby's house is a composite of several estates, Harbor Hill provides the spiritual blueprint. But there is a cruel irony here. In the novel, Gatsby is the fake, the dreamer, the one who disappears. The old money Tom and Daisy Buchanan survive. In reality, it was the old money estate of Harbor Hill that was doomed. Fitzgerald published The Great Gatsby in 1925. It sold poorly at first. Clarence Mackay probably never read it. He didn't know that while he was struggling to keep his real roof from leaking, a writer was building a fictional house that would last forever. Fitzgerald captured the soul of Harbor Hill just as it was beginning to die. Chapter 9. October 1929. The stock market crashes. The decade of the party is over. Clarence Mackay is not wiped out instantly, but he is wounded. His telegraph companies are bleeding money. People stop sending telegrams. They start making telephone calls. The wireless companies are eating his market share. Between 1930 and 1935, Clarence pours over $1 million of his own personal fortune into his failing companies to save them. He refuses to fire his loyal employees. He is a captain going down with his ship. Harbor Hill pays the price. The staff is cut from 38 to 22, then to 14. The gardeners are let go. The manicured lawns begin to grow wild. The ballroom is shuttered to save on heating. The family lives in a few small rooms, huddled around fireplaces in a mansion designed for hundreds. In 1938, Clarence Mackay dies at the age of 64. He leaves behind a tangled estate, a second wife, and a house that no one can afford. The property taxes alone are $28,000 a year. The war in Europe starts in 1939. There are no buyers for Gilded Age palaces. The house sits empty. Vandals break the windows. The pipes freeze and burst, flooding the north wing. The library, once filled with rare first editions, is damp and silent. In 1947, the end comes. It is brutal. The family sells the entire estate, the house, the gardens, in the memories, to a developer for $190,000. That is less than 10% of what it cost to build. The developer doesn't want the house. He wants the land. He sees 60 suburban lots where the mansion stands. In October 1947, the dynamite arrives. It takes 6 months to destroy Harbor Hill. The salvage crews strip the marble mantles and the crystal chandeliers. Then, the wrecking balls swing. The limestone walls, which were meant to stand for 1,000 years, are crushed into gravel. The copper roof is sold for scrap. By April 1948, it is gone. There is nothing left but a hole in the ground and a view of the water. Chapter 10. Today, if you drive to Roslyn, you can find the site of Harbor Hill. You will find a subdivision of nice, suburban ranch houses. You might find a street named Mackay Drive, or a stray piece of a stone gate hidden in some bushes. But the palace is gone. Harbor Hill was not the only one. Between 1940 and 1960, nearly 200 great American estates were demolished. They were taxed out of existence, deemed obsolete, and erased. We lost a heritage of craftsmanship that we will simply never be able to replicate. But the loss of Harbor Hill taught us something. It became a rallying cry. It helped spark the modern preservation movement. Because of losses like this, we now have the National Trust. We have organizations fighting to save what is left. Places like Oheka Castle and Old Westbury Gardens survived. They found new lives as hotels, museums, and parks. They proved that these stone dinosaurs could adapt. Harbor Hill died so they could live. And then there is the fiction. The Great Gatsby is read in every high school in America. The story of the man who tried to repeat the past lives on. The fictional house is immortal. The real house is dust. So, the next time you pass an old, quiet mansion behind a rusted gate, don't just see a building. See the ambition, the labor, and the fragility of it all. These places are not just piles of stone. They are the physical memory of our history, and they need protection. You are part of this story, too. By watching this, by remembering, you are keeping the history alive. If you believe these stories matter, if you want us to investigate more forgotten empires of the Gilded Age, let me know in the comments. Preservation starts with attention. Thank you so much for watching until the end. How did you feel about this video? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Empire Legacies truly appreciates your support. And don't forget, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. And subscribe to the channel. See you again in the next episode.